know they're going to have a sour taste in their mouth from the last time we played them in the Super Bowl. And, you know, that being said, man, we got to go to work. We got to go to work and make sure we're ready to handle them.
I really do hope a lot of athletes are more open with their mental health. Yeah, I just believe it can help a lot of other people.
I didn't really want to be the person that felt like I was really struggling, but I was starting to really struggle with it.
Bayern or Madrid, Madrid or Bayern, we're going to face them. So one is the king of the competition, the other one maybe is the second or third king of the competition.
Travis Kelce, Destanee, Aiava, Madison Keys, Pep Guardiola, those are just some of the names who've been making the news in the last month, and we'll be hearing from all of them on this episode. Welcome to This Sporting Planet, your global view of sports. In London, I'm Natalie Sawyer.
From the USA, I'm Todd Harris. We're at the end of January already, and everywhere you look, there's been huge sporting stories for us to get our teeth stuck into. From the first tennis Grand Slam of the year, the Australian Open, to the final matches in a gripping UEFA Champions League phase, and the NFL playoffs reaching their conclusion. 2025 has gotten off to a bang. Now, first things first, before we get deep into the sports world, you might notice that Edward Russell isn't with us this episode, and he is taking in the sights in the Big Apple, even making us a little jealous on This Sporting Planet WhatsApp group earlier this week with his seats that he had in Madison Square Garden for a great New York Knicks basketball game. But joining me and Natalie this week, I'm delighted to say Australian broadcaster Kate Allman is joining us. Welcome to This Sporting Planet family. Kate, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from.
Hey, thank you so much for having me and filling Ed's shoes. I guess big shoes to fill. I'm joining you from Sydney, down under, you might call it. It's beautiful summer, of course. We've just had the tennis, best place in the world to be. We got tennis, the F1's coming up soon in Melbourne. In between, we are surfing every day. It's summer, playing some beach volleyball. I mean, it's pretty good down here. So here to make you jealous and also bring you all the news from my part of the world, which is Australia, New Zealand, and the Asian region. A little bit about me. I'm a sports journalist and a commentator. I actually grew up in a little town that is the hometown of Don Bradman. If you like cricket, you'd know Don Bradman. I went to his primary school, and actually a little fun fact for you guys, there was a stump at my primary school in Bower Primary where Don Bradman famously hit a cricket ball against it to learn and get his eye in, and that's where he applied his trade originally. So I'm basically as good as Don Bradman. That's what I'm telling you. So I'm here to bring it all.
Yeah, and our next episode, we're going to be previewing the Alpine World Ski Championships. But Kate, I've seen from your Instagram that you're a bit of a skier yourself, hoping to get back on the slope soon.
Yeah, you might have seen on my Instagram. I guess this is giving it away. That's my inspiration right now, Todd. About a year ago, I was skiing in your part of the world in Colorado, one of my favorite places to ski. And I accidentally had a little slip and trip and ended up in the emergency room, tore my ACL, blew out my knee, and I've been on the long rehab recovery road. But I tell you what, having done my ACL, I guess it's something that we as sports journalists hear all the time, those three letters, right? And it's kind of a death sentence for your season if you're playing sport. But I'd always written it or reported on it without much empathy for the actual situation. So now, having been through that rehab and the surgery, it's pretty intense, and you know your quads shrivels up. You can't walk for a while. To get back to walking, running, let alone skiing, is a pretty big deal. So I've got so much respect for all the NFL players and all the basketball players that are doing it as well. But anyway, so I'm basically cleared to ski in just about a couple of weeks. So I've been training really hard, and I'm actually heading over to Colorado. So I'll see you there if you can make it over, Todd.
It's a date. I'll see you in Aspen.
See you
I'm
there.
missing out here. I'm the only one that's not part of this skiing brigade. Well, do you know what? I'll be part of the après ski party,
there
shall
you go.
I? Because that's always the fun part for me. So I'll join you for that reason.
So as I mentioned, guys, it is the best time of year to be in Australia. Had the tennis, we had the cricket. Live Golf is coming down under. There's the F1 coming up, and obviously World Surf League, which I'm very into in March. But we've heard a few times in recent sporting events the word three-peat. It's coming around. You'd have to have been living under a rock to have missed the fact that the Chiefs are going for a three-peat in the Super Bowl. And we had Arina Sabalenka going for a three-peat in the final of the Women's Australian Open. Unfortunately missed out, which we'll go into later. But I'm thinking about this word three-peat and how difficult it really is to get there at the top of the mountain at the best sporting events in the world, to have a chance to do back to back to back. How often does that occur? It hasn't happened very often. I know in the Australian rules football, it's happened just a couple of times. The Brisbane Lions have done it and Hawthorn in the modern era. But speaking about your regions and particularly maybe the Premier League, Nat, does that ever happen? How hard is it?
Yeah, I mean, it is hard. Of course, it's very hard. To win the Premier League just once, you can see when you look at the order of the teams that have won it, there aren't that many different teams that have won it. You know, predominantly right now, it's Manchester City that lead the way. Liverpool obviously had that rare win not so long ago. And then you've got to go out to Manchester United and Arsenal back in the sort of 90s and 2000s when they really competed against each other. But that's kind of it. I mean, Chelsea as well, let's not forget them. But it's just a handful of clubs that tend to win it. So just to win it alone, I see that there. Just to win it alone is hard. To win it back to back is not easy. To win it 3 times, it does happen. But just to go to show the rarity of how hard it is to even win it 4 times, Manchester City did that last year. They're the first team in Premier League history to have won it 4 times in a row. It just kind of goes to show that it is a really, really difficult feat to achieve in the Premier League, just because every year it just gets more competitive and more competitive. And look where Manchester City are right now in the Premier League. They're really struggling. Maybe that's partly down to their aging team as well. But it's just a really difficult feat. It's incredible that any sports team, sports person can even be in the reckoning to win a three-peat. So, yeah, it's not easy, certainly here in the Premier League.
And a little known fact, guys, do you know who owns the copyright for the word three-peat?
No.
None other than Pat Riley of the Los Angeles Lakers. When he was coaching there and they were on their run in the Showtime, Byron Scott, where the players kept saying, oh, we're going to three-peat, we're going to this. And Pat Riley had the foresight to say, you know what? That's a pretty good word. He copyrighted three-peat. So he owns the copyright to the word three-peat, which I think is kind of crazy. They didn't go on to do the three-peat because they got derailed. But to your point, Nat, I think it's just, you always get everyone's best shot. When you're the defending champions, you get the best shot. So being a 2-time defending champion, everyone doubly wants to knock you off the top of the hill. So I think three-peat in any sport is amazing. Now here with the Super Bowl, everyone's talking about no one's done it before in the Super Bowl era, which is true. But if you go back in the early 20s, even the 60s, the Green Bay Packers actually did win the NFL championship. It wasn't called the Super Bowl back then, but they did it twice. They three-peated 3 years in a row. So it can be done, but I'm telling you what, it doesn't happen very often.
Well, and we should give a little shout out as well to Taylor Swift, who's not going for the three-peat, but 2 Super Bowls in her first 2 seasons. I mean, congratulations, Taylor.
There you go.
She's outperformed everyone.
Yeah, there's some NFL players looking on thinking, I've never even got to 1 Super Bowl. She's going to 2. Yeah,
Josh Allen is like, what do I have to do?
Yeah, quite. We'll talk about that a little bit later on the Super Bowl, won't we? But shall we move it on to what's been happening here in Europe? And we'll talk about, as I say, the NFL playoffs, the Australian Open as well. But it is the day after the night before as the new Champions League phase came to an end. And my goodness, did it deliver. Just a reminder of this new format. Out went the 8 groups of 4 teams, with 2 progressing from each of those to the knockout stage. And in was a huge 36-team league where each club's played 8 matches against random sides. Going into the final night of the league phase, no fewer than 16 of the 18 matches had at least one team involved with something to play for, whether that was securing a top 8 spot and a guaranteed last 16 space, or grabbing a playoff position, as well as the likes of the 2023 winners, Manchester City, who were scrambling to avoid an early European elimination. Now, as it turned out, City, of course, came from behind to beat Club Brugge to ensure a playoff place. But City were one of 25 of the 36 teams going into that last match day, not knowing their fate. Really, it was just Liverpool and Barcelona in terms of the positive teams that knew that they're already through to the last 16. Elsewhere, some key results for Arsenal, for example, saw them win 2-1 in Girona. That meant that they avoided the playoffs as they secured a top 8 spot. Likewise, Aston Villa's 4-2 win over Celtic ensured they progressed straight through to the last 16. And Celtic themselves are in the playoffs too. That's the first time they've surpassed the first stage proper of this competition since 2013. And we actually already have an idea of who the teams will be playing in the next rounds, with Manchester City and Celtic in particular about to face huge tests with either the European champions Real Madrid or fellow giants Bayern Munich to come. Pep Guardiola fully aware then that the test his side will face in those playoffs, regardless of who they face and who they'll end up getting in Friday's draw.
It's what it is. So it's no complaint at all. So it's Bayern or Madrid, Madrid or Bayern. We're going to face them. So one is the king of the competition. The other one maybe is the second or third king of the competition. So have experience and second game leg there. But what I wanted, I wish for the beginning of the season is to have the team back. You know, the players fit. It's all I wish.
So that was Pep Guardiola then confirming that actually, maybe for Real Madrid or even for Bayern Munich, it's going to be tough to face Manchester City. They do feel as though they're sort of starting maybe to get back into their stride, especially as they always seem to do at the late end of a Premier League season. But it was unexpected that they would be heading into this final game of the first league phase, not knowing if they were going to make it into the playoffs. It was absolutely extraordinary last night. I don't know how you all saw it, if you're even across it, Kate, because it's massive over here, the Champions League. This new format, people are still getting to grips with. But it was a bit like, we spoke about this previously on a podcast, Todd, with the Red Zone, how you were able to watch the goals show here and keep right across every single moment when a goal went in. What did that mean? How's that changing the permutations? How's that changing the look of the league, etc.? I sort of wonder, first of all, Kate, I'll come to you. Does the Champions League grip you in Australia?
Look, Nat, Todd, there's a rule, I guess, when it comes to reporting in European football in Australia. If Ange Postecoglou ain't in it, it ain't making news. And I say that tongue in cheek. There are obviously a lot of nuffies who have their teams and they do watch it. But the trick is, I mean, it's at 1 a.m. or something. And I mean, I'm so hyper-stimulated from watching something like NFL Red Zone. I can't even imagine watching that at 1 a.m. You'd be not sleeping for weeks on end. I think it would be chaos. The productivity in our country would go down. I don't know how we would handle it. But in terms of the people who watch football, obviously they pay attention to it. They might watch it later on streaming. I think streaming has really changed the way we watch things. I don't know about you guys, but when I watch things back, often do for NFL games, I'll have to kind of stay off social media until later in the day, and how hard that is to not find out the result is hard enough. But it also kind of comes over the same season as we have in our Australian football, the A-League, and we actually play our own Champions League with the Asian Champions League. So we've got a couple of other things we're watching right now. The Champions League, our premiership winning team, the Central Coast Mariners, actually bombed out in the very first round. That was at the end of last year. So we've got no Champions League excitement at the moment. But we do have the A-League that's going on. We watch a lot of the women's A-League as well. So you're kind of playing with all of these, and it might shock you just slightly to know that Australian media is somewhat parochial in a similar way to our fans. And so I think the Aussie fans, we really do pay attention to when the Aussies are in it. And so the Ange Postecoglou thing is a joke, but not really. He'll get on the paper on the front page if he says something crazy. He's in all our media coverage of that. And that will be the main point rather than the goal. It does sound absolutely electric what you're talking about, but I also find my pillow electric at that time of night.
That's fair enough. To be fair, though, Ange Postecoglou is probably making the headlines for the wrong reasons currently in Australia, just with how bad Tottenham are faring.
It is.
Yeah. You know, I think in the Americas, it's always something to watch whenever the Premier League is involved, because I think most people in North America, Central America, and Latin America, South America recognize the Premier League as one of the top, if not the top league in the world. So when you factor 4 teams in there that are in the Champions League and looking pretty good, it always draws attention. And of course, Man City, having won the treble before, they're obviously one of the top clubs in the world. That always draws attention. I think the time to your point is that it's amazing how it changes for us, because I think streaming not only has changed things, but the invention of TiVo. So you can set your TiVo, hey, I got to work today. I can't, put a phone in the corner of my desk and watch it, but people will TiVo it and come home and watch it later on that night. I think it's fantastic. And I think everyone loves the Champions League. The names, the teams, the clubs, they're the world's best. And so it's I guess probably the second best thing short of the World Cup. I will say this. I think that City is peaking, to your point, Nat, at the right time. And we've seen them do this before. They kind of slumber their way through fall and into the holiday break and all that. And then all of a sudden it's a waking giant. They just coming off a big win over Chelsea at home when everyone thought, oh, Chelsea, now Chelsea's going to be a new team. And they went up there and they get the first goal early and then they give up 3. So I think Man City's going to be fine. But that being said, I don't think I see City going very deep. I could have to eat these words in a few weeks' time, but I just don't know if City can go that deep with this run with what they've got ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they're going to play either Real Madrid or Bayern Munich tells you one big team's going to bow out. So that could well be Manchester City in these playoffs. It's quite remarkable. And this is really why UEFA wanted to change this competition.
Yeah.
They wanted to add in some more teams. So, that has made the Champions League, the league phase, certainly bigger. But they also wanted the initial stages of the tournament to have bigger matchups. Because often when you went back to the previous sort of format of the competition, you had 8 groups with 4 in. And by the time you got to the last match day, some of those could be dead rubbers because often 6 points was all you needed to get through. So at least in this one, we had an element of jeopardy. I think not everyone's sold on this still because, we're all a bit like traditionalists. We all like to keep things as it is. But I like the fact that we went into yesterday not knowing the fate of so many teams. And also what was fabulous as well, there were some great scenes at Villa Park, for example, and at the Etihad as well, where both Club Brugge and Aston Villa didn't know what they had achieved. So they were all gathering around phones, checking out what the table looks like. So Aston Villa, when they saw that they secured the final top 8 spot, celebrations wild with the players on the pitch. Likewise with Club Brugge, they just secured their spot in the playoffs. They too were all gathered around phones. Those are the lovely iconic moments that just will stand, I think, in long sort of history when we'll see just teams gather around phones having to find out the information of whether they've done enough. And for Club Brugge to lose that game, yet they still won. I think that's pretty impressive. Just to confirm the 8 teams then that are through that won't have to play the extra playoff round. It is Liverpool, Barcelona, Arsenal, Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, Bayer Leverkusen, and then the French side Lille also made it through, and they got through after that 6-1 win over Feyenoord. So, I think this is an interesting format, and I think it's one that we should all be looking forward to because it just adds in that intrigue going into a final match day. If you want to check out more reaction to the Champions League and indeed sport across the globe, make sure you check out the This Sporting Planet social channels. That's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, and Blue Sky. We're everywhere.
Switching attention to the tennis now, and you guys, I've been really enjoying the Happy Slam, as it's known, down under, the Australian Open. It is the highest attended Grand Slam event, and I mean, it is the best, is it not? Watching from overseas, you probably get a feeling it's warm, it's summer, you guys are in winter, we're enjoying it, we're in our T-shirts. There's all kinds of storylines, and this one was not short of drama. I mean, on the women's side, the three-peat didn't materialise for Aryna Sabalenka as Madison Keys came onto the court to take it to the champion. Now, this is 2 storylines that I think are worth paying attention to. Sabalenka, potential to go back to back to back in the Australian Open, the three-peat, as we've spoken about, so difficult and elusive to get in the top tier sport. And then there's Madison Keys, right? She's reached her first major semi-final in 2015 at the Oz Open a decade ago. She reached her first final at the US Open 8 years ago. She's been playing 16 seasons on tour. She's 29 years old, never won a Grand Slam, and she was up against Sabalenka, obviously the favorite. Those two battled it out for 3 sets. It was electric. Ended up going to Madison Keys for the very first time. And after the match, she spoke about what helped her achieve and get through those humps after all those years to win a Grand Slam. Here's what she said.
Lots of therapy. I really kind of bought into it. And I think in the past I had always kind of tried to go the sports therapy route where it was more about routine and controlling the things you can control and all of that. And I felt like I was always good enough at that. But to really start kind of digging in on how I felt about myself and really being honest with myself about it, it was really hard because I didn't really want to be the person that felt like I was really struggling, but I was starting to really struggle with it. so just being really honest and actually getting help and actually talking to someone. And not just about tennis, but about how I felt about myself. Again, very uncomfortable, and I never really looked to be uncomfortable. So I honestly think that had I not done that, then I wouldn't be sitting here.
That clip has been viewed more than 40,000 times on our social channels. So do check it out if you would like to, again, on our Instagram. But Todd, interested in your reaction as a big tennis fan. It's so fascinating watching how these players kind of mature. And I think all of them come to the conclusion that physical preparation is not enough. Mental preparation is what sets the best apart.
I totally agree with you. And I think what was great and so telling about that bite from her was it was open, it was honest, it was raw. She was so open with the media. It's okay not to be okay all the time. And I think that was what I took away from that. What also I took away from is her perseverance. Let's not forget, you mentioned this, 29 years of age. And she not only gets the win and gets her first Grand Slam title, but she goes through the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed to get it done. So it wasn't like she had an easy walkthrough or someone had dropped out. She went through the meat of the matter. And I was so impressed, not just because she's an American like that, but as you say, the happy slam just makes everyone feel good. Everyone's freezing to death up in the States or in Canada. It's just cold. It's that time of year. We're inside and you see all those happy Aussies down there in their t-shirts getting sunburned. And then you see someone like Madison Keys pull that off. I couldn't have been happier for it. Would I have liked to see something like get the three-peat? Yeah, it would have been great. But I think this was even a better story. And I think what it does is it opens up the conversation on athletes and mental health. And she wasn't afraid to say, you know what, there are times when I have lowest of lows and physically I'm fine. Mentally, I put some work into it. But I can't say enough. 29 years of age and she gets it done. So hats off to Madison Keys.
But it's also one of those sort of wins that tells everyone else who is of a mature, shall we say, tennis player that you can still get it done at 29 years of age. It's not all about the young guns that we always talk about. And I think we see that a lot in sport nowadays anyway, that sports people are able to extend their careers due to obviously the physical work that they put on, but also the mental side of it. The fact that they'll explore the dietary, the nutrition, etc. There's so much more out there that I think helps to extend people's careers. And look, at 29 years old, I'm not trying to say Madison Keys is done and dusted by any means, but I just think, when you look at someone like Jannik Sinner, who I'm sure we'll come to at just 23 and what he's already achieving in tennis, I think it's just a great sort of sign that even at 29, you're not done. You can still achieve your dreams. And from going from that first final in 2017 that you mentioned, Kate, to now winning a major, I think it's the longest ever in the Open era for the women's side that you can have your first major final to your second major. It's just impressive. And I love, as you say, Todd, that honesty and rawness from her. And I think we can all learn things from her, certainly.
Yeah, it's really a common thread I've seen with a lot of athletes who manage to take their game to the next level. It's the mental side. It's so crucial. Speaking of the mental side, absolutely mental was 23-year-old Jannik Sinner. He is incredible. Like, we are talking about a guy who's 23 years old. He looked like a total machine. Apparently, he was throwing up. He had the flu a couple of games ago. Like 2 days ago, he was nearly dead. He came back to life and just floored everyone. It's hot, all right? It's like 100 Fahrenheit, 40 degrees. He's running around, sliding all over the place like a slalom skier. Like, it's no issue for him. He's invincible. Wins in straight sets in an Australian Open final. I mean, full credit to Alexander Zverev, a great player, 1 and 2 in the world, which was actually fascinating. But there is such a gap between that 1 and 2 at the moment. And to me, it seems like Jannik, who defended his title from last year, went for a second. He's got the 2-peat. Next year, he'll be coming back for the 3-peat. I just think that 3-peat is in the bag. If he keeps playing the way he's playing, it is confirmed already. Give him, let's etch it in the trophy now, because there's no point. Todd, can anyone beat Sinner?
The way he's playing right now, I don't know. I mean, he seems to have all the tools. His game seems to be set up for a long, long run. And watching him win that title, what came to my mind, first of all, is, we've talked about this before. Nat can confirm this, but we talk about men's tennis and what it's going through with the passing of the baton, so to speak, of the torch, with Roger Federer and Rafa and those kind of stepping away. Is Djokovic's next one to kind of step away into his twilight of his career? I personally think we're going to see a lot of Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz finals for 4, 5, 6 years to come, because they're both so young. They both seem to be still climbing and getting even better. And so get used to Alcaraz-Sinner finals in all the Grand Slams and everywhere else.
So after the final, his opponent, Alexander Zverev, said Jannik Sinner is playing as well as Novak Djokovic, like you say, Todd. And when Djokovic was in his prime, he looked like what Sinner is now at 23. Here's what the Italian had to say.
Well, it's an amazing compliment, no, from Sasha. I mean, I think everyone is different in a way. Obviously, I have some similarities with Novak's game style. I still believe when Novak plays at his best, it's very, 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 very tough to beat him. But this when game style wise, I looked up to him, trying to understand what he's doing, how he handles the pressure moments in important moments. I still believe we are different as players because everyone is different, but for sure we have similarities, and the similarities are having a quite clean ball striking from the base, from the baseline, having a good movement, understanding a little bit where your opponent plays the ball. And yeah, I mean, obviously I aim to improve as a player because I feel like I still can improve in certain areas, and that's where we are going to work on, and that's it.
Sinner there speaking after his match and after claiming his second in a row Australian Open title. He is an absolute machine, and we expect to see him for many years to come. One man we hope to continue seeing for a few years is Novak Djokovic. Now, many of us will have seen he actually retired from his semi-final match with a leg injury. We're unsure of how bad the injury was, obviously. Djokovic doesn't like to give too much detail about these things. But Natalie, what did you make of that? And are we going to continue seeing him for many years? How many years does a 37-year-old tennis player have in him?
Well, he obviously feels he's got a bit more time left in him by the fact that he brought in Andy Murray. He's brought in someone that he feels can help aid him as he goes in pursuit of that record 25th Grand Slam. When we talk about, we've already mentioned Madison Keys, who at 29 is not old by any means, but you might say when it comes to sports careers, you're getting towards the end of your career at that age. Jannik Sinner, just 23. I mean, it's merely incredible that Novak Djokovic can be out on a court at 37 years old. I would love to see him still compete because it's just a nice fairy tale story, isn't it, for someone like him to be able to clinch, as I say, that 25th major and maybe go on and can clinch a few more as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that he had to bow out like he did with an injury, because it would have been nice to see if he could have gone through and reached that final. But, he has to also listen to his body. And at 37, your body is going to tell you more than when you're 23. So I hope to see him continue and break that record. But one player I want to talk about, when we talk about Andy Murray, and obviously he's finished his career, he was the highlight for British tennis. Of course he was, when he won Wimbledon like he did, and the other majors as well. And you consider another Wimbledon and US Open as well. One player we talked about when we were previewing the Australian Open was, I said, you've got to look out for Jacob Fernley, who's had this meteoric rise in tennis. I think last year he was ranked 600 and something. Now he's at a world high ranking of 77. He has been absolutely incredible. Came up against Nick Kyrgios, who we know has had his injury issues in the first round. Got past him, got past that vociferous crowd support as well, no doubt. Made it through to the third round. I just thought it was worth mentioning him once more because that's his first overseas Grand Slam tournament. And to reach the third round, that is mightily impressive. And like I say, he's broken into the top world 100, 77 in the world. He's hoping for a long career, and you just never know. If he continues the way he started, then I like it a lot. So yeah, and I just wanted to mention Jacob Fernley once more.
One of the more remarkable stories from the tournament, and one that I really loved, was that of our home favourite, Destanee Aiava, who won her first ever Grand Slam match before losing in the second round. Now, Destinee's been around for a little while. She's never made it past the first round of a Grand Slam. She's played in the Australian Open. In fact, she's been a tennis star since she was 14 years old and never made it past the first round. So this year, when she beat Greetman, she made it through. It was absolutely incredible. I was lucky enough to grab some time with her. She is the flavor of the month right now, you guys. Down under, everyone wants a piece of Destanee Aiava, not only because of what she did on the court, but also her incredible outfits that I'm sure you saw. We had to catch her in between a film shoot and a photo shoot. She was in an Uber. I'm sure she was going to sign autographs or maybe have a nap in between all of the things she has to do. She's that important. But we grabbed her just in time.
I was really happy to get past my first round after so many tries. And yeah, to do it in front of everyone at home was really special. And yeah, the crowd was just amazing. So yeah, I was really happy with how I performed.
You said you were a little bit nervous. I guess the crowd was really on your side, but talk us through how much pressure that is in terms of your first time getting past that first round.
Yeah, I just remember trying to back myself every point, even when I was down and almost about to lose. So, yeah, I just tried to keep believing in myself and use the crowd to my advantage. And they definitely gave me more energy. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed playing in front of everyone. It was so loud, even on a smaller court. So, yeah, hopefully they can come back out again next year.
You have been open about mental health struggles in the past. For those who don't know, can you just briefly walk us back into some of the darker times that you've had and how you've come back from that?
Yeah, so I've also always struggled with my mental health growing up, but I was just fortunate enough to go and get help and get diagnosed with BPD. So yeah, it's always something that I'm dealing with every day, and especially in tennis, it is really tough because it is so lonely. But yeah, I think therapy is amazing, and everyone should go do it, I guess, even if they are, happy. Um, yeah, I feel like it's really important, especially off the court as well. For me, if I'm happy off court, then my results will show on court. But I really do hope a lot of athletes are more open with their mental health. Yeah, I just believe it can help a lot of other people.
I think everyone really fell in love with your story, obviously because of your success and everything we've spoken about, but the outfits. Talk to me about the outfits. Where did that idea come from? How did you think, I'm going to start looking around on eBay and Marketplace and see what kind of vintage tennis clothes I can get? Where'd that start?
I don't know. I bought them a couple months before I started AO. I just was looking at old tennis pictures of I think Serena and Maria Sharapova. And yeah, I just really wanted to find the old dresses that they were wearing because no one else was wearing them anymore. So yeah, I thought I don't know, it would be something nice and cool to wear on court for my tournaments. So yeah, I bought a couple and then decided I was going to wear it for my qualifying matches. And yeah, it suddenly got picked up and everyone was recognizing the outfits I was wearing. So yeah, it was really exciting, and watching everyone trying to suss out what I was going to wear for my next matches. Yeah, it was really fun.
But okay, so I don't know how you came across it, but were you just scrolling on Google and the algorithm picked up an old outfit from a former champion? Like, how does that kind of happen? You went out looking for it. Have you always been into fashion?
Yeah, I went out on mostly eBay and I just typed in Maria Sharapova dress or Serena Williams tennis dress. And then, yeah, fortunately enough, people were selling their dresses that they had kept for years. So, yeah, I was lucky to be able to pick them up. And yeah, I've always loved fashion, it's a massive part of my life. Yeah, I feel like if I'm wearing something that I really love on court, then I'll play better. But yeah, I do love my fashion. So yeah, that's probably where it came from.
I was going to cover this earlier, but I think it's a really nice way to finish is that you are such an inspiration for a lot of young girls who are from a Pacific Island background. I know you're very proud of that. Just speak to us about how much that means to you, a little bit about your heritage for those who don't know.
Yeah, it does mean a lot being a Samoan Australian and seeing so many Samoan flags out during my matches, and a lot of the little girls wanting to get into their first tennis lesson as well after watching my games. It means the world, and I'm just so happy that I could be one of, I don't know, their role models to look at, especially in tennis when they don't see anyone else in their lessons that look like them. I'm just happy to be the one that they can look to and hopefully strive for more, and I don't know, maybe be better than I am at tennis one day. And it's just really amazing to see so much support from the Pacifica community as well. So yeah, it's been amazing, and I'm so grateful for everyone who even turned up to my matches from not even watching a tennis match in their life. So yeah, it's really great.
Well, we loved watching you. We loved supporting you. And to all the little girls out there watching, you can look like Destanee and be an absolute star. And you could look like anyone, really, as long as you set your mind to it. Thank you, Destanee, so much for spending some time with this sporting planet.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So Destanee caught the collective imagination of Australia, you guys, wearing vintage outfits, the likes of Maria Sharapova, the Williams sisters. I don't know how she finds them. I don't know how your algorithm starts serving you up vintage tennis outfits. And certainly it takes me a lot longer to go online shopping for any simple thing. I bought some nail polish the other day and it took me about 2 hours. Anyway, it was very exciting and such a thrill to see an Aussie who's so proud of their Samoan heritage, and to show the young girls, as you said, what you can be what you can see. But there was another player on the court that caught a lot of attention around the world. And it was her opponent in the second round, Danielle Collins. And maybe not for all the right reasons. We're told this is the happy slam. And yet everyone in that court, in that audience, seemed to be against Danielle Collins. Increasingly, as the match went on, they were getting more and more, I don't want to say divisive, maybe I do. It appeared that they were going for the home crowd advantage, and that's fine. But I wanted to hear your thoughts. I know we Aussies can be very parochial, cheering on our own team, but Todd, how did you feel the crowd reaction was? And then Danielle, her reaction at the end?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, obviously you cheer for your own, you cheer for your home. And that's why home court advantage is such a big deal. I think it's just one of those things where we're so used to tennis fans being so proper. Would this have happened at Wimbledon? Would this happen? It definitely could happen at the US Open, but I just think everyone was so in love with what they were seeing and the story, and everyone loves the Cinderella story. This had all the makings, and I absolutely love the eBay stuff. I think that's fantastic. Who hasn't wasted an hour? I know we talk about doom scroll on Instagram, but who hasn't doom scroll on eBay just looking for random things or this or that? And it's, yeah, exactly, hands in the air. So I think it was one of those stories where they wanted to see the story carry on, and it came to an end before the hometown fans wanted it to be. Did they handle it properly? I don't know. Danielle Collins, she said, what was the comment that was made afterwards, that you're paying her bills?
She was going to go on a boat. I think she'd take all her friends with the prize money. She would take all her friends on a boat and go celebrate and party. I mean, look, hey, if you win, like, I kind of thought, good on you, girl. They don't get paid that much, Nat.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think she said she was going to go to the Bahamas, didn't she? Which, I mean, if you're going to go anywhere, why not go to the Bahamas? Listen, some people love it. Some people love that heckling kind of thing. It kind of brings out the best of them, brings out the fire in them. And maybe that's what Danielle Collins had in that match, because I've spoken to a lot of footballers who often get a lot of stick over here from, old teams, for example, that they used to play for. And often they'll say, I love it because it just riles me up. It gets me into the game more. And, maybe that's how it worked out with Danielle Collins as well. Look, if you're going to give it out, you got to expect it back every now and then. That's what Danielle did. She just fired it straight back. So I thought it was fantastic. And we like to see personalities, don't we?
I kind of agree. And look, we'll leave it at this, and maybe this is something to mull over for our audience at home. But I wonder if a male athlete had done the same, would we celebrate them or would we be criticizing them as much? I'm just gonna put that out there. Because we got to move on. We got to move on. It is NFL playoff time. Todd, what is happening over there? It's chaos.
Yeah, let's switch our attention to the NFL playoffs because after 12 playoff games, we know who will be facing each other at Super Bowl 59. It's a rematch of Super Bowl 57 from 2 years ago as the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs, play the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people are saying they've got Kansas City Chief overload. They're sick of it. They want to move on. We'll see because they are now looking for that unprecedented three-peat. Now, it's happened before the Super Bowl era. The Green Bay Packers did it twice. But I'll tell you what, it has been an amazing run for the Chiefs. This is generational talent. And let's not forget, Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback for the Chiefs, is still in his 20s. And they are now going for that unprecedented third Super Bowl title in a row, or a three-peat. Here are some of the Chiefs reflecting on reaching yet another Super Bowl, starting with tight end Travis Kelce.
It's a new feeling right now, but I'm just excited, man. I'm very I'm happy for the guys that are doing this for the first time, trying to make it everything for them. But I know there's bigger fish to fry, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles down there in New Orleans.
But we're not done. So we're not done. We've got another game against a real good Philadelphia Eagles team, and we've got a lot of preparation to go before we have a chance to play them.
It's just so hard to get to the Super Bowl, and I don't take it for granted. And to be able to do it again at Arrowhead was special. I mean, last year it was awesome. You get there and you win it, but you're at a different stadium. And then being able to win it at Arrowhead, and then you get that trophy on that stage, and you look around, and there's not a seat empty. It is a special place, and I'm glad that I get to be a part of Chiefs Kingdom and here in Kansas City because these moments that I'll have for the rest of my life.
And we know they're going to have a sour taste in their mouth from the last time we played them in the Super Bowl. And, you know, that being said, man, we got to go to work. We got to go to work and make sure we're ready to handle them.
And in that clip, we also heard from head coach Andy Reid. Remember, he used to be the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles and, of course, the quarterback Patrick Mahomes. So Taylor Swift's boyfriend seems really riled up for this game, and I think the Chiefs' obviously experience is huge. This will be what they're going for their third win in a row. They have been there, they've done it, they know what to expect, the media crush, and then you get this mini bye. So what happens is after the AFC and the NFC Championship are done, there's a week break. And now you used to put the Pro Bowl in there, but it gives the teams a chance to heal up. So anyone that has any nagging injuries, which they all do after this late in the season, they get kind of a mini break and to heal up. So they should be at full strength. Now, again, we've talked about the three-peat in this episode. It hasn't been done in a major U.S. sport, NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, Major League Baseball, in over 20 years. Now, Green Bay, we talked about, they did win the three titles back in 29-31 and 65-67. But it is going to be amazing if they can pull it off. And with that comes all the glitz and glamour of the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Taylor Swift will be there. You talk about who is doing the halftime show. You talk about who's going to sing the national anthem. There's prop bets on all those things, what you're going to have for your Super Bowl party. We can't forget the other half of the Super Bowl guys, the Philadelphia Eagles, which for my money has the most talented roster. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are the most talented team, but I think from 1 to 52, I think the Philadelphia Eagles may have the most talent on that roster. They took down the Washington Commanders 55-23, and it was a lot closer than that. It was the fourth quarter when the Commanders had serious turnover issues with their young quarterback, Jaden Daniels, but they will be back. But I'll tell you what, Jalen Hurts looks very good. Saquon Barkley, for my money, he is the NFL MVP. And it's hard to believe that the New York Giants guys let him go. They traded him away. How did the Giants do this year? 3-14. So, it's going to be a great game. I can't wait to see it. So what I thought is, how can we get ready for this game? How can we get the fans of this sporting planet ready for this game? Well, I leaned into my Rolodex just a little bit. If you know what that is, kids, ask your parents. And I called one of my good friends, Dan Fouts, NFL Hall of Famer, and he did a great job of contextualizing what this game looks like and just exactly how good the Chiefs are.
Well, I was in the era of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Terry Bradshaw, their great quarterback, and also the 49ers with Joe Montana. But don't forget about John Elway in Denver. There were some pretty good quarterbacks back in those days. And that's the biggest thing, is that whenever I faced a team that had a great quarterback, it made me maybe focus a little bit harder in practice, concentrate a little bit more, work a little bit harder, because I knew that my opponent was a great player and he was going to probably have a great game against us.
You look at someone like Josh Allen, who plays for Buffalo, and is it a case of, and someone made a great analogy, and I can't take credit for it, is this a case of like Karl Malone, John Stockton, Reggie Miller, Charles Barkley? They just were born at the wrong time. I mean, he is a great, what more could he have done on that game against Kansas City? He did everything they asked him to.
Well, and I think they asked him to do too much. I mean, how many quarterback sneaks are you going to expose your quarterback to?
Yeah.
You notice Kansas City doesn't do that very often. And when Mahomes runs the ball, he runs smart. He doesn't take on tacklers. He tries to get out of bounds. So I think that, the game plan for Buffalo, both offensively and defensively, was just plain wrong. You can't play man-to-man coverage all day long, especially, when you have your best corner out with a concussion. So, you look at that last play of the game where he hits P. Ryan down the sideline. Well, the Bills were in man-to-man, and so they picked everybody off on the inside, and P. Ryan was wide open. Just a brilliant call by Andy Reid.
Can I talk about coaches first of all? As soon as the playoffs start and the regular season's over, the coaching carousel starts. And that's a good place to start. A guy we know well, Pete Carroll, coming back again with the Raiders. Do you like that fit?
Well, he's the same age as I am, so I'm ready for a comeback too. Pete and I think you know this, we played Pop Warner football against each other about 62 years ago. So anyway, it's good to see him back. It'll be interesting to see his relationship in that I want to call them Oakland Raiders, in that Raider organization, when you got Mark Davis and now Tom Brady in there, and Pete Carousel, as you almost said.
Yeah, he's talented, and we know him well from his days at USC, and then he was quite successful in Seattle. So I think it's great to have him back. He's a great mind. Some of the other hires, though, Schottenheimer goes to Dallas, Aaron Glenn at the New York Jets. I was talking to someone, and they were saying, they gave such a great speech at their press conference. I say, well, they all do, until they get to August and September and then October, and then it becomes real. Of all the hires that you've seen so far, which one do you think it has the best chance of succeeding?
Oh, that is a good question, because you got to look at their personnel that they're dealing with too, and how quickly they can change the culture and get their message and their system across. As far as who's going to have the most success, I kind of like the Schottenheimer hire a little bit in Dallas, but Dallas is in all of a sudden the toughest division in the NFL. And when you think of Philadelphia and Washington there, the Giants, of course, are just going to be there, but they're not going to really contend for a while. I never really thought that Deion Sanders had a chance to go to the Cowboys, because Jerry Jones is still Mr. Cowboy, and he would have to share that title with a guy like Prime.
Of the rookies that you saw play, and I've always contended, having never played in the NFL like you, but it's so hard for a rookie to do well that first season. But the young man, Jayden Daniels at Washington, the way he came in and the poise, do you attribute that to he played a lot of college football? Bo Nix played a lot of college football. Do you see a quarterback coming out of college this year that you could think can do the same thing?
Absolutely. That's so key, is getting experience. And the reason a quarterback is drafted high is because the team is not very good, and they need a quarterback to solidify that position. When you think about Daniels and what he did this year, think about the big games he's played in his college career. And so you go from the high-profile games like that, and you have got a coach who, in Clint Kingsbury, he was also a pretty good college coach, as I recall. And so a lot of the things that he did in college, Daniels did in college as well. So there's a real good connection there between the two, as far as, what type of plays they want to run, what type of personnel they want to use to run those plays.
And my thanks again to 1993 NFL Hall of Famer Dan Fouts. We worked together, truth be told, on the college package for ABC in the States for many, many years with the great Keith Jackson as the play-by-play announcer. So I got to know Dan really well, and he is, for my money, one of the best analysts out there breaking things down. He had such a great career with the San Diego Chargers. And if you want to hear more of that full interview, you can always go to This Sporty Planet and our YouTube channel to hear the entire interview with NFL Hall of Famer Dan Fouts. All right, ladies, so what do you think? You got either the Kansas City Chiefs, Taylor Swift, and her boyfriend Travis Kelce, or the Philadelphia Eagles. I can tell you right now, I am leaning green just a little bit.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I am very intrigued about Saquon Barkley, because from what I've seen of him, he looks so explosive in the Philadelphia Eagles team. I'm really intrigued to know why the Giants let him go, because we're seeing such incredible talent there. And I don't understand why you'd let someone of that talent go, Kate.
$1 million question.
Oh, wow. Well, I don't know if you guys have watched Hard Knocks. If you haven't watched it, it's everywhere on the internet. But the owner, John Mara, told his GM after they let him go, he said, "I'll have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia." Well, I'm sure that he hasn't slept most of this season, right, Todd? I mean, he is not of this earth. I've seen him like halfway through the season, he was vaulting over people backwards, jumping, spinning, you just let that guy loose, and he scores a touchdown on like the first drive of the game within a couple of minutes. I would say, however, he's got a very good hand in his O-line by none other than an Australian, Jordan Mailata. So Jordan Mailata, he came over from Rugby a number of years ago, and he's in the O-line for the Philadelphia Eagles and possibly one of the best at his position. A big guy, right? I don't know what he weighs. It's like 300 pounds or something, monster, pushing people out of the way, having his way with defensive lines, and Saquon just charges up the middle. It's a pretty nice game plan. But fun fact here for the Aussies is that Jordan Mailata might be the first to win a Super Bowl if they do win. If the Eagles go home with the ring, they will be taking an Australian all the way to the top of the mountain for the first time ever, which is very exciting. But you got to get past the Chiefs and Mahomes. And I have to say, going back to your interview with Dan, Todd, great interview, by the way. He sounds like an amazing guy, Hall of Famer. But do we know him around the world, as harsh as this is, without a Super Bowl? Like, people remember the Super Bowl winners. They're not going to remember in 20 years who came second to the Chiefs on all those times. Mahomes, he is in the running to be the next GOAT. He's only 29. He's done more than what Brady had done at this age. He keeps putting aside, like it's nothing, Josh Allen, who is a great quarterback. Every time they meet in the AFC Championship, he beats him. And poor Josh Allen, I mean, Buffalo have never won a Super Bowl. The Detroit Lions have never been to the Super Bowl. It is arguably the hardest game to get to in sport. And Mahomes has done it 4 times. It's unbelievable. I can't bet against him. I can't.
I agree with what you're saying about never getting to the Super Bowl with Dan Fouts and that, but you look at the list of great players who have never gotten to the Super Bowl. Dan Marino, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in the league, no question about it, never got to a Super Bowl, never won a Super Bowl, I should say.
Wow.
And my point was in the analogy of Karl Malone, John Stockton, Charles Barkley, Reggie Miller. These are guys, and I'm born at the wrong time. They ran up against a wall called Michael Jordan. And so I guess for Josh Allen, he is running up against a wall that is Patrick Mahomes, and it's going to be a wall there for quite a while, still in his 20s. So I just think there's going to be a lot of great quarterbacks who are not going to ever win a Super Bowl possibly because they played at the same time as Patrick Mahomes. And for Dan Fouts, it was Terry Bradshaw. It was Roger Staubach. It was, he listed all the great quarterbacks that he had to go up against. So winning 1 Super Bowl is an amazing thing. Winning 3, unbelievable.
And it's not only Mahomes. I mean, like that AFC is stacked right now. We've got Burrow, Mahomes, Allen,
Lamar Jackson.
I mean, the NFC, we've got my 49ers and Brock Purdy. He's been to a couple, met Mahomes, I am one of those fans, by the way, that wants Mahomes to lose because, Jesus, give someone else a go. And my poor 49ers would love to win one just one time. But yeah, I can't bet against him. I got to say, he's unstoppable.
Well, before we finish, it's time for any other business, or as we like to refer to it, A.O.B.
Indeed. Now, you might remember in our last episode, we spoke about the secrets of the January transfer window, and it has been a busy few weeks for clubs around the world. There's been a lot of talk of the outs from Manchester United for this month, and they have sent Brazilian winger Antony out on loan to Real Betis. It's never really worked out for the £80 million man, and this might help to revive his career. We're still waiting to see what might happen with Marcus Rashford. It does seem as though his future lies away from Manchester United, especially when you're hearing what the manager Ruben Amorim continuously says about him. So he's a one to watch. This obviously being recorded before the window shuts. On the blue side of Manchester, well, City completed the signing of Egyptian forward Omar Mamouche from Eintracht Frankfurt, as well as the defender Abdulkadir Kusanov, the first Uzbekistan player to play in the Premier League. And there's also been a world transfer record gone, and that has gone in the women's game, as Chelsea have signed US defender Naomi Girma from San Diego Wave. That is around £900,000, which equates to around $1 million, making her the first player to break that $1 million transfer fee. She's just 24 years old. She signed a contract until 2029. I think it's a statement of intent by Chelsea, showing that they're going to go for the very best in the world. Lyon, one of the most successful teams when it comes to the Champions League in Europe, well, they were one of those competing for her signature, but Chelsea have won the day. And she has won plenty of plaudits in America from everything I've seen. She has had a huge meteoric rise. I think she only joined San Diego Wave in 2022, but made her international debut later on in that year. Won gold as part of the US team as well in Paris last summer. And I do wonder if Emma Hayes has had a little bit of a word with her, because obviously she was the former Chelsea head coach, now the US coach. And I wonder if she was saying, go to the blue of Chelsea. That'll work for you. That'll be the best move. So that is a brilliant signing for Chelsea, as I say, and it's a world transfer record fee as well.
In Australia, a lot of stuff happening. The Aussie women ended a 7-year drought by winning against New Zealand in women's rugby sevens. You guys, when Australia beat New Zealand, I can't overstate how big of a deal that is. It's incredible. So we did that in the A-League, the men's. Auckland FC are the new team this year. New Zealand have 2 teams now. They have Auckland. They are the first in their first year, and they're at the top of the table. So it's an incredible story, Auckland FC. Every game over there gets total sellout crowds, and it's really running riot over there. The A-League killing it. And then finally, Women's Ashes. Natalie, how are we going to go on the Women's Ashes? Final test. It's being played at the MCG. An opportunity for us to whitewash you guys. That's occurring as we speak. Hit off today, and I can't wait to reflect on that next episode.
And for my A.O.B, I've got to start with the NBA. We're getting ready for the trade deadline as of this recording. Not quite there yet. It'll be interesting to see what the Miami Heat do with Jimmy Butler. Then you have the NBA All-Star break. But a lot of it's really going to be focused on not only post-Super Bowl, but the NFL coaching changes. Brian Schottenheimer to Dallas, Pete Carroll at 73 back in the NFL with the Raiders. Chicago and Jacksonville, they get their new coaches. New Orleans still looking for theirs. And then let's not forget about the NHL, the National Hockey League. They are building towards the Stanley Cup playoffs. And this is some great news for our neighbors to the north in Canada. The Canadian teams are looking so good this year. You've got Toronto, Winnipeg, and Edmonton looking like serious Stanley Cup contenders. But don't forget about the Washington Capitals. They are on a tear right now. Also, the incredible alpine ski racer Lindsey Vonn is continuing her comeback from retirement with 6th in a downhill race and 4th in the Super G at St. Anton in Austria. I know you love that story, Kate. Back on the skis for her. She's aiming to compete in next month's World Championships in Austria, and we'll be chatting more about that in the next episode.
That's it for this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show via your favorite podcast provider and on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And also, we would love it if you could give us a review while you're there.
Next up, it's almost time for Super Bowl. We'll have you all covered completely in one of the biggest sporting fixtures on the planet. Plus, we'll preview the Alpine Ski World Championships coming up in Austria.
That episode will be dropping into your feeds on Wednesday, the 5th of February. Until then, from Kate, Todd, and myself, and the whole of the This Sporting Planet team, thank you very much for listening.